Welcome everyone to Best Wedding Ever. We are Nicole and Alex. We help new and novice officiants plan and officiate perfect, personal wedding ceremonies. So if you have a question about how to turn your ceremony chaos into the best wedding ever, let us know in the comments.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Best Wedding Ever. I'm Nicole, and this is Alex, and this is Spike, and we're bringing you a special stay-at-home edition of Best Wedding Ever. We're sitting down today to talk with Sara and Kelsey, one of our favorite couples ever.
Yay!
Yay!
Hey!
Yay!
We're so excited to welcome them to the show and to talk a little bit about the amazing wedding that they had a couple years ago and really get into some of the nuts and bolts of how you all planned and made certain decisions. So thank you all for being willing to chat with us about this.
Yeah, thanks for asking us. We're excited.
First, I'd love to start by just having you just introduce yourselves, who you are and where you are, and then we can dig into your wedding.
I'm Kelsey.
I'm Sara.
And we live in Mount Rainier, Maryland. We are right on the border, Washington, D.C., by 2 blocks. That feels important to say. And I grew up on the West Coast and moved to DC like 5-ish years ago and met Sara shortly thereafter, and
Then she stayed.
here we are, married, living in this house with our dog who's away because he has a pterodactyl noise. So
Yeah. And I grew up on the East Coast for life and have been in DC for the better part of 12 years. And I just keep staying.
So you all took very, very deliberate care, and we love this about you. We're very intentional about how you set up the space and how you set up the group dynamics, but you also took a lot of great care to make sure that the wedding ceremony itself was like very intentional, and that it communicated exactly what you wanted to communicate. And I want to dive into what made your wedding ceremony so special.
Yeah, we have been to a lot of weddings between the two of us. I can't even count. And something that I think we talked about early on was that if the point is to have a ceremony, let's focus on the ceremony. Like, actually focus on it as it's as important as something else. And, I grew up Jewish and my family practiced that, and Kelsey grew up Christian and her family practiced that. And now as adults, we sort of practice those things a little bit differently in this interfaith home of ours. And so that was really sort of the starting point of, we want everyone to feel comfortable. We want everyone to feel seen, and we're going to pick and choose the pieces that feel good to us that we think will feel good to them.
yeah, and we really, I think we're dealing with, there's a lot of traditions in Judaism that you can do in a wedding that don't necessarily require a certain belief in God or in, any of that. They're sort of like symbolic parts of a ceremony. And that's not so much the case for the Christian parts of a wedding, right? It's very typical in my community to do communion during the wedding. And Sara was not going to eat the body of Christ, that was not, and that doesn't also really align with my beliefs now. So that was really a challenge to sort of dig into the Christian part of my growing up and find what felt valuable to both of us, to me, and also made sort of my family be seen. Because also I'm not I didn't convert, I'm not Jewish. This is, wanted to make sure that we were both of our families were really well represented in our ceremony.
But that it also represented us, right?
Right.
I grew up in a Jewish family and I've been to a whole bunch of weddings, and I know what the right steps are and what the right order is, but that doesn't sit with me, let alone with us. And so it was definitely important to pick and choose the pieces, and even once we chose them, to make it fit. So, Judaism is a Hebrew language, which is, patriarchal, and, we had to fix that. We had to change that a little bit, not just because we're 2 ladies getting married, but also because we wanted it to fit. So we put a more modern spin on some of the religious pieces.
And Alex, you had to help me look at about 85,000 hymns to find one that felt steeped in tradition without being about the blood of Christ and being about God broadly. And
Blessings broadly.
You were such a gem.
We did a deep line reading of those hymns to make sure that they said what we wanted to, because it's familiar doesn't mean it actually translates into what you actually believe right now.
And we should take a step back, because actually one of the first choices that you made in order to accomplish this goal of having this like integrated, very intentional interfaith wedding was choosing a co-officiant structure. So you chose Alex from the Christian religious tradition, and then you chose another friend from the Jewish tradition.
Yeah, my friend Devin from Seattle also had an interfaith wedding. Her husband is, his family is Jewish and like, you know, really practices. They approach their wedding from a place that I think Sarah and I wanted to as well. Like, this isn't something we're just doing because you do it. We're doing this because we want our communities to be together and to say like, we are a new family in front of all those people. And so having Devin and Alex was really great. I feel like it was also sort of sweet that like Alex comes from a Christian tradition, which is my tradition, and is like, you know,
my person.
We are friends now, but like was Sarah's friend. And then Devin, who is my friend from Seattle, who comes from sort of this more like
more familiar with the
Jewish
tradition.
Spiritual and Jewish tradition. Yeah. So that was really important to me, and that was another space of like, we want both sides of our like world to be represented,
and we want the folks officiating to know us. We don't want to like rent a rabbi, you know.
Right.
Like this is a very important group of people to us, that are all of our people are coming together in one space, maybe ever just that one time. And every piece, we wanted every piece to feel as authentic as possible and to feel as personal as possible. So to have some like random stranger come in and be like, do you? Yes. Do you? Awesome. Right. Like, not our vibe.
But not to judge people who make that decision, because I totally understand it. It just wasn't our.
Your choice was not to just represent the historic tradition, but to actually reinterpret some of those traditions to be more of a blend of the two of you. And that's where Devin and I came in to help. I think it's interesting that you pointed that out, Kelsey. I haven't even noticed it until just now that we sort of crisscrossed like some of our historic affiliations with the people that we've known the longest, but that we kind of served as bridges in conversation around like, okay, how could we take a certain thing and update it or make it more relevant to the two of you?
And really, it's like between the four of us, we're coming from at least like 6 perspectives, right? Like, that felt really also great.
We were a full blender of a smoothie.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So, you know, we started planning early in kind of leading up to the process. And I'm curious what some of your assumptions about ceremony planning were when we got started.
So I have said this to you guys before, but after we went through the whole process, I was like, man, we really should have paid Devin and Alex like a lot of money that we didn't pay, because it's a lot of work. I mean, I just don't think I realized how many decisions there were to make. And yeah, just like generally how much work it was. And we were just so thankful to have you and Devin. And it's probably worth mentioning that my dad got diagnosed with cancer right after we were engaged. And so and then his cancer went away, and then it came back shortly before the wedding. And it made wedding planning, I think, more emotional for us than we were able to say at the time, and made us avoid some things. Like, I literally can't even think about whatever the email is Devin and Alex sent us a month ago. And you guys were so gracious and helpful and sort of being like, please just do A, B, and C by this date. And it, I think, required a little bit more hand holding on your end. And just really grateful for that. It was really generous of you guys to be that patient.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, you know, if you're not going to do the traditional thing where there's like a very clear order and you're just like, yes, this, then that, then this, then you kind of taking it all on. For me, it felt like, well, we can't just like throw in the typical blah, blah, blah here and there and then insert pieces. We wanted the whole thing to feel cohesive and representative and touch on certain little pieces. So we really had to get into it on like everything. Which is definitely a bigger bite than we thought we were taking, maybe.
Yeah, it's like a journey of decision and choice points that when you kind of scrap the what doesn't feel good about some of the like rote formality, that means you start the choice points much further out. But what I really appreciate about the two of you is, even in the midst of a lot of family stuff that was going on and painful family stuff that was going on, like you were signing up for the journey. And I think what we got through to the end was really, to me, worth it. I hope it feels that way. Like, it was a lot of work, but what it set you up for, from the like ceremony through to the marriage, to me feels like there was some impact there around like making the time to do all those choices.
Yeah. I mean, PSA to couples who are asking their friends to marry them. It is an honor to marry your friend and a crap ton of work. So you're not just asking someone to read off a paper that already exists. Most likely, you're asking a friend to marry you. There's a reason for that, and it's a lot of work.
Right. Yeah. Which is exactly why we built the course.
Yeah.
For folks who want to do that process well.
Exactly.
You know, I think like you kind of already mentioned this, Kelsey, a bit, but like there was a huge challenge that developed in the middle of wedding planning, which is your dad's diagnosis and everything you had to do to kind of manage that. You know, I'm curious for the two of you, how you articulate what helped you move through that, like facing that and continuing the wedding planning process.
A month before the wedding, I was definitely like, no, but for real, could we postpone? Like, can we just look at what the contract says? Like, what would happen if we pushed it off? It just felt so daunting.
2 months before the wedding, we almost tried to get married quickly
in California. But I think because we were already approaching this from a place of like, a big part of the reason why we're having a wedding, I think, especially as queers who like want to interrogate what is the purpose of being married, what is a wedding, that a big part of it for us was being able to join our communities together. And that just felt even more important with my dad's diagnosis. And honestly, kind of knowing that was the last time all my family would probably be together. And so it just felt really important to like put us forward to like all that work that we had done from the beginning felt even more important to be able to like establish ourselves in front of our community and with my dad, and knowing just how special it was that he even got to be there. So I think it was those values, like, you know, carried through that whole journey. And it was nice to kind of go back to that touchstone of like, we're already on the right path. Like, this is already what is important to us.
Yeah. I remember the ceremony planning process. I wasn't a part of that, but I was sort of in the periphery. And I think that one of the things that Alex really appreciated about you as a couple was that you were willing to answer some hard questions, even though you didn't have a ton of time. You were willing to put your attention on some of these more and they're not difficult questions, but they're like, you have to think about it. Like, what does this mean to you? Or what would be meaningful to have here? Or what would, you know, feel the best to have here? And I really appreciated that you were willing to go for that. And you weren't interested in like, you didn't want somebody else's wedding. You didn't want to copy, like you wanted something that was so meaningful. And I think that was, one of the reasons why your wedding in particular was so memorable. Like, I remember your friend playing that beautiful song and singing, and I remember the different elements that you incorporated from the Jewish tradition, because I was like, oh, that's so great. Look at that. Like, that really, you know, you saw people in the crowd like nodding, like, yeah, that really resonated. Yeah. And I think that is, of course, the power of intention and the power of attention.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I also have to give a little credit to like dating after 30. Like, we just have lived a life and have seen a lot of weddings, have been in a lot of weddings, have, you know, been in a lot of therapy. Like, I've done a lot of feelings talk, like, we're queer, come on. You know, and I just think like we got to a point where it was like, all this, you're schlepping across the country, you're finding a new outfit, you're whatever it is, everybody's like doing all this thing to come here. And it almost kind of felt like to half-ass it is just like not who we are.
Yeah.
Like, never not extra. Oh my God. Or things that people say about us, or maybe doing a little too much. Like when we built a sukkah, I built a sukkah a week before our wedding, which is really fun. It's a harvest
Yeah,
thing.
Nikki, that's the right
yeah,
thing.
it's fine. In our backyard. I just like erected a small structure. It's fine. But like,
I didn't realize that went up like in a week. Okay.
it went up in like a day.
It was substantial. It was not like we glued this together from stuff we found at Home Depot.
Yeah, no, it was a project. But that being said, you know, I think really focusing on, like we've said, focusing on the ceremony as a whole, but then also on like each individual piece, like high attention to detail, because one of the other sort of themes of wedding planning for us was that we want everyone to have a really great time. We want them to have a great time. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to feel the like love and the joy and the togetherness, and to like, I mean, our friends are a good reflection of us, and that they're all very social and will like go talk to random family members and strangers. And so we wanted to sort of create a ceremony that spoke to all the different little pieces, right? All the ways that people sort of show up for us.
Yeah.
So we had different people at different, like, do different parts of the ceremony.
And also doing a lot of things made it, I think part of why people have wedding parties is to say, like, these are the people who are going to, like,
do our things,
mean a lot to us and are, like, going to hold us up, and sort of having many opportunities for people to be involved in the ceremony kind of subbed in for that, you know, wedding party vibe.
Yeah, so we had friends playing music, we had friends singing us down the aisle, we had family members holding the khutbah. I mean, we had a lot of different places where we could insert.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, so I was actually going to say, I'm sure people would love to hear some specific examples of where you were very intentional, and you did give some examples of sort of the kind of physical elements that you were able to bring in. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like how you made those decisions, you know, so when you were thinking about having certain family members represent certain things, or when you were choosing how to prioritize what to represent in the ceremony.
Yeah, I think, you know, we wanted my dad to be able to offer some sort of prayer, which that was also not about the blood of Christ. And for, you know, also there were some easier decisions for us. Like, my mom doesn't love public speaking. So it was easy to be like, Dad, this is important to you. Why don't you do this? And Sarah's dad also doesn't love public speaking. So it was easy to have her mom do the Jewish prayer, the Shehecheyanu, which
she and her sister love the most. It's a prayer you say the first time you do something each year. So you really have a lot of opportunities to say it. And my Aunt Andy really loves saying it all of the time. And so my mom and she sort of had that bond. And so that was her piece to say. And my dad was kind of fine to just like, let her do it, you know?
Yeah. So that felt special. And then doing the 7 blessings allowed us, it's 7, right?
It's
the 7
7
blessings. Okay. Allowed us to incorporate 7 people, which was great because I was able to like have, you know, some of my close friends from college be a part of that. And
that's extra interesting since you went to a Christian college, and we did a riff on a Jewish tradition, and then our friends just sort of like blended together and did their 7 pieces, which was great. So it was both an opportunity to have a lot of people be a part of something and support us and participate, but also we took a traditional prayer and we did it in English, and we didn't do it as it was written. We did a very much more modern and feminist version of it, and a more egalitarian version.
There were also, I think, a lot of, I don't know if symbolic is the right word, but even thinking about things like who walks down the aisle when and with who. Talking to our wedding planner about that, I was like, okay, just everybody sits down. Like, I was so stressed about it. You know, I have a big blended family, so it's like my stepmom and then my stepdad, but like he and my mom got married after I was in college, and like, you know, it was just, there's a lot to think about. I genuinely can hardly even remember what we ended
also like
doing.
Who walks in first, and then is it like, you know, it in a traditional heterosexual couple, like the man is waiting up there, or sometimes he walks in, but he walks in and then the rest of the parties, and it's like, okay, we're having 2 aisles, we are both walking in with a biological parent on either arm at the same time.
Yeah. That was like
all equality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like having to push back against, like, even a wedding planner or someone that you really respected was bringing that, like, that traditional piece and having to say no. Like, again, just highlighting, this is another decision we need to make to push against it. That feels important to you, pushing against something like a should.
Yeah. And she was, actually really helpful, because we were balancing things like, I want my stepmom to feel honored. A numbers game worked in our favor in a lot of ways.
I have one brother, you have one sister and two stepsisters. So that's the 4 legs of the chuppah. And then your stepbrother, Charlie, walked your stepmom, Chris, down the aisle. And everybody got their parts. Oh, and we had 2 glitter children instead of flower girls.
So
cute. They were compostable glitter on the ground, and it was really lovely. And they both practiced for a very long time at home.
Yes. And I think it's worth mentioning that you were so successful and the wedding was so successful. I still remember the 7 blessings. I still remember that beautiful song. You chose contributions that matched the contributor. Like, you didn't force anybody up there like Toastmasters. Like, this was not the time to make, like, this is not the Academy Awards. You have to get up there and give your speech. Like, you paired the person with the contribution that was going to allow them to shine. And I know you did have more private moments with the shyer parents who were able to step up when it was when there were fewer eyes on them.
Yeah, rehearsal dinner is a great time to let lots of people toast. Because there's lots of time and there's less people, and if it gets awkward, it's less people know.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to think about kind of all the moments where someone can contribute and in a way that feels good for them. Because really, depending on how you set up your wedding, it's true. You have the rehearsal dinner, you have the ceremony.
First, you have the getting ready. So people can come and do that with you, or maybe they do your hair.
But I'm talking about, like, when you can say something to people.
Oh, yeah, the ketubah signing.
Yeah, there were a lot of options. And then also the reception. Like, there's plenty
and you created those options. I think sometimes people want to just get everything over with as fast as possible, and then they wonder why it didn't feel special. And it's because those pauses, those moments where you allow people to, like, love on you, or you yourself as the couple honor somebody who's been important to you, are what create that specialness.
Yeah, we also love to host, like, in our lives, love to, like, have people over and
dote on them.
Yeah, and I think I don't know that I've ever explained it this way, but it's occurring to me, like, that's really how we approached our wedding. Like, we are hosting people for a party. What experience do we want them to have? How do we want them to be well boozed and well fed and have fun, and really approach kind of everything from that perspective.
And people who are really important to us are coming from near and far. And how are we going to sort of honor them or make them feel special or make them feel seen when we know that, like, there are 140 people here and we're not going to get to hang out with a lot of them. But again, by creating those special moments and opportunities for the moments to happen, even, having our friends stay at the inn meant that when we were getting ready, we had 30 people with us, and they could pop in and out or help look at a speech real quick or whatever, and, like, tie a tie, and it was just, there was a lot of opportunity for the moments to happen in between those that we actually intended to.
Yeah, that's right. You created some organic opportunities for people to just be around. And I really love the frame, Kelsey, of, like, we were hosting. I think often in weddings, couples can get so anxious about the spotlight's going to be on me, people are going to be staring at me, people are going to be wondering, what I want them to do. But by offering for couples who are feeling that way, it's like, no, you're hosting something. And what would it look like to kind of turn it on its head, that this is about celebrating not just the love you share with your partner, but the love you've created in your community, and allowing that to really come forward and giving people opportunities to share that with you. I think a lot of couples get really nervous about receiving love from their people, and how nerve-wracking is it before your parent opens their mouth to say something publicly, like, oh God, are they going to embarrass me? Are they going to only talk about the blood of Christ, for example? And one, you set up your parents for success. You shared, like, here's what I don't want you to say, if possible. And like, just the like open-heartedness to receive what they say without, you know, like I get sweaty at open mic nights, for example, for other people.
No, thank you. Hard pass. Yeah.
But in this instance, like like all the loveliness that people were sharing about you, I think many others received for themselves too. I don't know. It felt like a community moment, like at the rehearsal dinner, like people giving certain toasts. Like people were crying, you know, not just because of their love for you, but also like just feeling that love of a parent for a child, for example.
Oh yeah, your father's toast, Kelsey. I still am like, oh my god! Like first of all, he killed it. He killed it. It was like he was amazing. And then I mean, just like everybody in the room could feel how much he loved you. Like everyone in the room could feel how proud he was.
Yeah, it was pretty special. I mean, I remember when he stood up, I'm gonna not cry right now, but when he stood up to give his toast and everybody clapped, I think because everybody knew it was like a really big deal that he was there. And he just like didn't get it at all. I had to be like, Dad, they were all clapping for you, FYI.
He was like, we clap between, right? No.
And it just felt really so special to have, you know, that was the last time a lot of my friends saw my dad, and he loved my friends. And it just like, I have so much gratitude that we were able to have that time together in our community, right? That was,
the like melding of people.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to like, we weren't interested in this being like a spotlight on us and like, but look at me, I'm a bride and this is my other bride. We would never even say those words. But like, it just.
I was like, go on.
Yeah, please say more. So it just felt, you know, I think we really created something that was like, we just want all of our people to be together. That was like our goal from the beginning and what drove all of our decisions, or tried to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you said it a number of times, and I just want to underscore it, is you all settled in quickly on what your core values were and what your hope for the core experience would be. And every time you faced a barrage of decisions, even the ones that felt overwhelming, you could toss out the ones that didn't add to that feeling. And you could zero in on the ones that did. So even when things got overwhelming, you could streamline in a way that actually still felt authentic and not like you were sacrificing because things had gotten really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you really that was really a gift that you gave us, I think, in that like the very beginning of our conversations with you and Dev, it was like, what's the overall feeling? Like, what do you want it to be? What do you want it not to be? Because some of the knots are almost easier to come by. And then that was sort of our North Star. Like you said, it was like, okay, we want hospitality. We want folks to have organic experiences, to like have a, you know, time to make a moment and to be able to hang with each other, and good food and lots of booze. So that's it. Now, how do we go from there? Right. It was like a great jumping off point.
And that also helped us, I mean, not just in our ceremony, but, you know, when you're looking at your budget, and also just the wedding industrial complex starts to creep in. I mean, I made a rule for myself that I was like, I'm actually not going on Pinterest unless I really like need one idea for something. It's really easy to be like, okay, do I think that having the coolest table number thing ever will mean people have more fun at my wedding? Like, no, I don't think that matters at all.
They just need to know where to sit.
Yeah, and actually the one Pinterest heavy thing I did, which was our chart, nobody could fucking read anything.
It was so much work.
So
Remember the chart.
Yeah, I mean, to me it was cool, but
you don't even nail most of them.
That's true. I just think, you know, it's helpful to have those core values in so many ways because there's just so many decision points.
You don't need a shot glass with our date on it. You need a hangover kit in the morning because we're in the middle of nowhere and you can't go to a 7-Eleven real quick, right? So like Gatorade, Advil, like emergency, a granola bar. That was more important to us than like massive flowers, but that's also because our venue is so pretty. So I think, again, like every decision leads to either a slew of other decisions or now no more decisions because that just took them off the table. And I think it's the same with our sort of like overarching principle of like hospitality, having a really good time, room for magic to happen, go.
Yeah.
Not too scripted.
So I'm curious, just as we're kind of thinking about it on the whole, like, what are you the most proud of from your ceremony, and what still stands out after more than like 2 years since the wedding?
Most proud of our glitter children. I'm really proud that we both wrote our own vows, and because we're so well matched, they made sense together. And we both got through them.
Mm-hmm. I just feel so proud of how we were able to weave together traditions from both of our families that felt right to us. You know, I got a little snark from a family member afterward that was like, wow, you really changed the words to that hymn. And it just felt like, I don't even care, because it felt so rooted in who we were. And I feel really proud of that. Like, we didn't I think you make certain compromises for your parents, and I kind of think you should, because like,
your parents,
they're an important part of this.
It's a big deal.
But I don't feel like we did anything that wasn't true to us.
Yeah.
And I hope this maybe sounds a little self-absorbed, not set an example, but like showed some people maybe like, this is another way to do it. And even though because I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, started to panic halfway through the ceremony was too long, I literally was almost like, we got to wrap this up. But nobody was like, wow, that really lasted a while. Everybody was like, that was so beautiful. It was the best ceremony I've ever seen, in ways that I believe were genuine. I don't think people were just saying that. And that feels really special, that we put a lot of effort into something, and people saw that we did something that was special for us.
Yeah, and Nikki, you kind of said like the pieces that we asked people to participate in really fit them, just like the whole thing really fit us. And I think that was as important, that like we asked our musician friends to sing for us or to play for us, and we asked our quieter friends, like my best friend Kathy, who would not want to give a speech, and Vicky also not wanting to give a speech. They each got like a little thing to read in the 7 blessings, right? So it was fitting for them and fitting for us.
Yeah. I
think that's really, again, not to sound conceited, but like it's really thoughtful, which is really sometimes very hard to achieve when you're stuck in a this is how we do it moment, instead of how do we want it to be. Right.
Yeah. Ultimately, you all gave yourself permission to represent traditions, not hold fast to traditions.
Yeah.
And the work that did for those gathered, your community that represented 2, Jewish and Christian backgrounds, among many others, like agnostic and beyond. I think that it also was very welcoming of people to experience another tradition that maybe they hadn't been as familiar with, and to see that interpretation that is possible. And I think, to your point, Kelsey, that not many people know that that's true, that that's something you can do, is to actually kind of be faithful to the tradition and to yourselves at the same time.
And also to, like, with the hospitality piece, like explaining what we were doing. You and Dev sort of set up the next thing that we were going to partake in or participate in, so that it wasn't just piecemeal, but it also, if it wasn't something that you were familiar with your own tradition, you sort of got a glimpse into like, okay, this is normally the way we do blah, 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 and today we're going to do it this way, and we're asking these folks to come up. And it was like setting the stage for each little act that I think made it feel also more welcoming, and like more personal for folks.
Yeah, because if you've ever been to a religious service outside of your tradition, you're like, what are we doing? Are we standing?
Yeah.
Are we drinking?
Are
we praying? Am I singing?
Yeah.
Little stage notes can be.
Yeah. Love a stage note.
I think my last question is, any last advice you would offer couples who are in the midst of planning for their own ceremonies?
Particularly around this piece of like integrating kind of 2 separate lives and representing 2 separate lives in a ceremony. that ends up feeling like it belongs to both people at the end.
Don't get lost trying to incorporate all of the things, every prayer, song, hymn, piece that you've ever loved, and while trying to make it your own. That's too many. Stop rewriting all the things.
Yeah.
Edit.
We didn't even talk about this beforehand. I think for me, like, give yourself a break. It could feel like an enormous amount of pressure to like say every single thing that we wanted to say and do every single tradition that felt 100% like us, but still like, you know, was honoring to our parents. And just like give yourself a break. This isn't your only, hopefully, opportunity in your life to let your community know who you are and what you're about. And just do like what feels right and get clear on your goals and forget everything else and chill out.
Right. There are very few have-tos. Figure them out in the very beginning and then go from there.
I like that.
I like that.
That's good.
Fabulous.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate you sharing the perspective, your hindsight. And I know that this advice is going to help a lot of people create just absolutely the best wedding ever for them. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, team.
Yay. Thanks so much for joining us, officiants. If you have a question or a tricky situation we might help you navigate, please reach out by leaving a comment below or emailing us through our contact form at rebelheartrituals.com. We're so proud that you are taking your officiating responsibilities so seriously, and we're glad you're ready to rebel against should to create the best wedding ever. See you next time.